This episode is with Trudi Lebron, who is a coach, a social innovator, a writer, and she's the author of one of my favorite books, The Anti-Racist Business Book. You should definitely pick it up. She's also the founder of the Institute of Equity-Centered Leadership and the famous course, The Art and Science of Coaching. So in this episode, Trudi and I have a really deep conversation around the social dynamics that help Trudi hone her gift of being able to see and anticipate the future. And we talk a lot about how her femmefluence was something that she knew all along, but was told by other people was not a good idea to share. And if you've ever felt like your superpowers, you had to hide them in plain sight because of that, this is a perfect conversation for you. This conversation is so juicy. We talk about the paradox of family, friends, and our businesses, and what that has to do with how we manage our energy, especially if we're in a season of upswing in our business. We also talk about the difference between commerce and capitalism, and how we as ambitious women still pursue a life of autonomy and wealth on our terms. So jump in, watch this episode. I think you're going to really enjoy it. Hey, Trudi.
Hey, Jen.
I'm so excited you're here.
Me too.
Okay. So femmefluence, the word femmefluence, I call it basically your superpower. What's yours?
So my superpower is that I can see the future, specifically our social future. I can talk to people and observe problems and circumstances and kind of see the best way for us to move forward together so that we can improve our world, our companies, our relationships. I think that's what my superpower is.
As somebody who knows you, I agree. You really are really good at that. But where did you discover that was your femmefluence? When did that first consciously pop up for you, that was something you were meant to help people with?
Yeah. I gotta say, for a long time, it was something I was self-conscious about because I was taught that was bossy and that was like me wanting to be in control of everything. My father always tells the story of how he would take me to, my cousin's house or over to places, and I wouldn't play with children. I would organize how they were playing. And so I would get, when I was younger, especially when I got into the workplace, I felt super, very self-conscious about, am I taking up too much space? Am I trying to be in control? And then over time, I was just like, oh, I'm just actually right. I'm actually just...
I just want to give you a high five on that.
Thank you.
It's okay to be right. It's speaking my love language.
Yeah, it's not that I'm bossy. It's not that I'm, want to be in control. It's that I'm seeing things constantly that people are not seeing. And when I can help people see those things, they make different choices and things improve in different ways. So, it's just... I just had to accept it.
Yeah, that's amazing. So because you're so boss at seeing things in the future, is fun and creativity and joy like inside of that too? Yeah. Like what do you do to experience those things? Because I think as women, we don't create a lot of space, or that's what I'm noticing, especially as entrepreneurs, we don't necessarily create space for joy and playfulness and creativity. How do you do that?
Over the last few years, I've been in a really conscious and active practice around joy and space and intentionality. In fact, I write an email almost every week to our community called Weekend Practice, where I just kind of talk about like, here's what I'm thinking about this weekend, and this is what I'm going to do, and this is what my intention is. And sometimes that is like, I got to catch up on some work this week. And sometimes it's like, I just don't want to do anything. And sometimes it's like, I'm going to California to have friends, to have fun with friends and do things. So like, I do have to be really consciously practicing, disconnecting, having fun. And also like, because my life is so non-traditional, realizing that those things don't happen for me in the way that other people, I'm not going skiing on the family vacation. My joy and play sometimes is intermingled with like work and studying and talking about things that other people would never think of as fun, but for me they're so enlivening, right? So just kind of making it up for what it means to me and then practicing those things.
What's so cool is this is a special series for the Femmefluence podcast, but I've been interviewing phenomenal women like you, and that's a through line when I ask this question, which I love that we're all identifying that we're choosing to be in this type of work, whether we're in different industries or not, because work actually is pleasurable for us. So even researching or geeking out on new things, or it doesn't make us necessarily like part of the hustle culture, or that we are getting bombarded with. Work is fun to me too. And that's why I like hanging out with people like you and other people like us, because there's no shame in loving work too, right? I mean, do you agree? You see that?
I totally agree. And I will never forget, you said this when we were in Mexico a couple of years ago, that you don't want to, I don't want to hang out with people who are not like, who can't talk about business sometimes. That like, that's actually not fun for me. Like, I'm not going to hang out with, you know, I don't know, a bunch of moms and just talk about like being a mom and our kid. Like that is not my idea of what sounds fun, or just kind of like disconnecting and sitting on the beach with no technology. That sounds a little boring to me. You know? And I know that that's wonderful for other people. And that's what I'm all about. I'm all about people defining what is right for them, and living that out.
I love that. And you definitely are. That's also another common theme, interestingly. I don't know if you guys are noticing that from, if you've watched the videos that we've put together, and they had no prep ahead of time in terms of what they would say. And that's another through line of, you know, what's enjoyable to you may not be enjoyable to me, but we don't have to judge that. What we have to do is we have to be committed to ourselves to then create that, right? It's amazing. So what's your advice for women to own feeling rich, recognized, and respected on their terms, as Nikki Elledge Brown says?
Yeah.
And what is the first piece of advice that you would give them in really owning those things?
I think the first piece of advice that I would have for people is really about taking the time to define your terms. Defining the terms, and then after you define those terms, take a step away from it and come back and ask yourself, are these really my terms, or are these the terms that I think I should want because of what other people say or what society says, or that I feel like I should choose because of some vanity metric or success idea, right? Just like there has to be a separate moment where we're sitting with ourselves and saying, is this really true? And I think we skip that a lot. I think we make the plan based on the ideas of what success looks like and what we think we want in whatever moment. And we don't take space and come back and say, why do I want this? Is this really right? And then once you're right, like once you're clear, practicing communicating that vision to your, you know, community, your family, your peers, and creating an environment where you can live that out. Like you can't just want something and not organize your whole life around it and think that it's going to happen. You have to put all the pieces in place like a puzzle.
Yes. And I call them anchors, right? Because like if you
anchors,
can,
yes.
So it's like rich, for example. For some people, that's a trigger word. For me, I love that word. And rich is not just about money, although money is delightful, okay? And it gives you choices, which is really nice. But really, like, there's cultural wealth. There's environmental wealth. There's relationship wealth. There's, you know, health wealth. And all of those things, they are separate categories that taking the time to just list what would your ideal thing be in those areas.
Yeah.
And then you design whatever you want around that. That's I mean, I want to normalize that we anchor it down first and then like do it the other way.
The other way that we can be really rich is time. And I don't know that that's as valued enough. I'm talking to more and more clients and colleagues who are like, this money's great, but like not if it's going to cost me 18 hours a day and all this stress. And like, I have had more conversations in the last year than ever before about people actually taking conscious steps back, like just to scale down a little bit, to recalibrate, and reorganize and consider where am I in all of this that I've built, right? I feel like we're in a big season of that right now.
That's exciting, right? That we're finding that women especially are not feeling guilty about wanting time, space, energy. Like for me, time, yes, but energy even more, because if I am around people that drain my energy, and it makes it, time actually feels like I'm getting less and less of it. And so for me, I'm always protecting my energy. And to me, when I have energy, I feel rich like that day because I'm vital. I'm like, oh, I can do things. I have the energy to create content even, or to have a conversation that I've been wanting to have, but I'm like, oh, if I talk to this girlfriend, I know it's going to turn into a 3-hour conversation. How many times, I don't know if this has ever happened to you, like when I do want to catch up with what I call my friends that aren't in the business world, typically it is to kind of download all the OG things that we did as young people making poor choices and and laughing about it. And I want to have energy for those conversations, but that's why I can only have conversations right now, or until recently, with people who were also in business, because that was such an important part of my life. And I couldn't talk about that with, like, say, my cousins or whoever, but they still meant something to me. I just didn't have the energy left. And I felt like that was actually stealing from myself. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a really weird experience, especially if you come from a family where people don't really understand what you do or haven't had the resources that you've been able to have. Like, it's just, sometimes people don't really understand everything that you're, kind of holding, right? I know that for a long time, my family was like, well, you're home. Like, I could call you in the middle of the day. Like, you're not like working, So there's a lot of, there's just different, such a different type of expectation that people have of your life, because they don't really understand.
And that keeps you from being rich, respected, and recognized, because you're holding, is my mom still going to be, is she going to be mad at me? Are my kids going to resent me? Is my best friend from college going to think I'm no longer available for her? Because I started not getting invited to the potlucks anymore.
Same.
I was like, I still want to get invited. And they're like, but you always can't come. When I was in my season of, upswing, I was like, right now I'm in a season of upswing. And they don't even understand those terms. They're like, what does that mean? Like, you just can't come to the potluck. And I'm like, no, I want to. How about if I send something? Will you still invite me later? But I get and had empathy for that, but it didn't. It hurt a little bit still. And I think it holds women back, especially because we're such community builders by nature, and we don't want to be left out. But we still got to find our upswing. Yeah. So.
But we also have to be vulnerable too, right? So, like, this is something that is a real active practice for me. Even like in the last 2 weeks, I've probably had 2 different occasions where I've really had to be vulnerable about this. So in one case, a friend invited me somewhere, and it was somewhere that I would, if I was available, I would have loved to be. There was actually this weekend. And I wrote back, and instead of just saying, sorry, can't make it, what I said was, I love that you invite me to these things. I can't be there, but I really appreciate being invited. Please keep asking me to come, because one day I will make it. You know what I mean? Like, and then she was like, hey, when you're back in town, let's go grab, a drink and like catch up or whatever. So, but it took for me to say, like, look, I appreciate the effort. Like, I don't want you to think that I just casually don't come to things, right? Because I don't care. Like, it's not like that.
Right. And I love that it's that taking that little bit of time for relationships you do care about, that you really do want to continue to nurture. You just might not have the time, energy, or space for it at the moment to just give them the same respect back. Because respect is, it's mutual, right? Totally. And so I love that piece of advice. Make sure you write that one down. If you're ever in a conundrum where you have to say no, or you feel like you've got a Sophie's choice, like you got to pick one or the other, and you're going to disappoint everybody, including yourself.
Just lean into it and say everything that needs to be said.
So what are some things that you've had to unlearn to get to the place you are now?
So I got to say, I have, I've been really fortunate to have this kind of alternative experience. So I don't know that I've had to unlearn as much as I've had to just kind of figure out from the bottom up. I, dropped out of high school in 9th grade. I was a teen mom. I'd never worked in a corporate environment, right? But what I did have a lot of practices is working in nonprofit environments and like scrappily figuring things out, like how to be successful. So in that context, there was definitely this idea that I had to unlearn that you could be well compensated for what you do, and that it didn't have to feel like the worst thing ever. Like, it didn't have to be hard. It didn't have to tear your soul. Like, you don't have to work 18-hour nonprofit shifts, like, for minimum wage, like, that you could be well paid and still feel good and have a full life, and that it doesn't mean something bad about you, which is what the nonprofit world will try to trick you into thinking, that people who have money are bad, and that people, and that like all the evils of the world kind of come from this like wealth and greed.
Yeah.
And I think that was probably the biggest lesson that I had to kind of, once I wrapped my head around that was a big lie, things became so much easier for me.
I'm so curious about your thoughts on commerce versus capitalism.
Yeah.
Yeah. So can we talk a little bit about that? Because I think it would be very helpful.
Yeah.
Especially from somebody of your expertise who is about not just social change, but liberatory leadership, values, all the things that you do to help organizations make that a part of their organization instead of a side project that they're doing to check off a box mark. So can we talk about that, commerce versus capitalism, from your lens? What do you think what's on your mind right now? What do you think people need to know about that?
So commerce is simply the exchange of goods and services, right? Like it could be money, it could be trade. It's just the exchange of services that allows this world to function and allows us to kind of work together to get all the things that we need, right? Capitalism is such a complicated, one of the biggest problems with capitalism is that it's so complicated and that it can mean so many different things to so many people, right? Some people look at it as just like an economic system. Some people look at it and see a whole value set of things that are associated with. Other people think of it as just like the way money works and like this, you just put money in and get money out and that's the goal, right? But it's so much more complex than that. Capitalism at its core is about the ability to own and produce and be compensated for, for the labor that you do and the things that you put out in this world. Where it gets insidious and toxic is when there's abuse that is built into it and exploitation that is built into it, right? And so when people think about, and this is one of the biggest problems for a lot of the folks who are coming out of like education and nonprofit who are thinking about business, they think that just because you're selling a product, it means that you're a capitalist, right? An
insidious
and
capitalist.
That all of the problems are like your fault. And that's just so not true. It's really not even the smaller businesses that are even making millions of dollars that are the problem. The problems are really these giant corporations that own so much, that are consolidating both power and money at the top and paying people at the bottom, the direct line laborers, barely minimum wage, right? Not livable wages. That's the problem. But I am envisioning a world and trying to contribute to a world where we can still produce things, create things, like, own our labor, own our intellectual property, but compensate people well, make investments back into the community, financial investments, energetic investments, all kind of investments back into the community, where we can look at the health of our economy through not just like how much money there is, but also how much health we have, how the quality of life that all people are experiencing. We can measure our success differently, but it's just that the current setup that we have measures it through this like very limited lens.
Yes.
But that's a choice. Like that doesn't have to be the case.
Right. It's also like even countries, right? Like I always say, every country is a brand, right? The United States of America is a brand. It's one of the most powerful brands ever created. And notice the word created.
Yeah.
It was
for sure.
created. And so we measure success globally by GDP, right? And I'm way more interested in countries where wellness is the success metric, and wellness includes money. Like
it does.
Financial wellness,
100%.
health wellness. That's, I think, and that's what I'm taking from what you're saying is like, we need to be individually focused on what's our wellness metric in those categories. And then whatever we're doing to contribute to that from a global perspective, like whether it's we're choosing to be in a job and we're a leader and we're aspiring to lead other people inside of a company, or we're actually creating companies, doesn't matter. That doesn't separate us.
Exactly.
So I love that. Well, let's talk about what you're up to next. Like, what are you excited about right now?
I'm excited about A lot of things. I think so this is the 10th year anniversary of my company.
Wow, congratulations. That's a huge milestone.
It
Congratulations.
is. Thank you. So in September, we'll be like celebrating that. So we're doing a lot of work right now to put some systems in place to automate a couple things so that my time can be freed up, because I'm thinking about another book. I want to do a lot more writing, a lot more podcasting, content creation, and teaching, and reserve my coaching for more, spend my personal time coaching, working with executives who are trying to do this calibration that we're talking about, right? How do you lead your company in a way that is values aligned, that's liberatory in its nature? And what's interesting about that is that that's not traditional executive coaching, because you're not just talking about what's happening in your business. You're talking about like, how do you feel really like in your life, right? And like, how does that impact how you show up? So I'm really excited about like working with more company leaders, while our Institute for Equity Centered Coaching is continuing to like certify people, coaches and leaders, and work with, do our consulting work. So I'm just looking for a lot more creativity, spending my time doing more of that creative work and like up close and personal, impactful work.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I can't wait to see what gets revealed, because as you say, you can see the future. And I know that it's hard being a fellow futurist thinker, or given the gift of it rather, that because you can see things where they're going to go, it can be sometimes frustrating because you are the trailblazer in a way, and you'd be like, I've been talking about this for 10 years. I don't know. It's cool that people are catching up now, but
that's how I always feel.
Right?
I'm like, I've been trying to tell y'all since 2016.
And so I'm super excited about all of this, because that's in my mind where Trudi Lebron really shines. You're such a genius in all the things that you pursue, and shifting the status quo when it comes to leadership feels like you're ministry to me as someone on the outside. All right. We do this thing called the Femmefluence Fire Round.
Yes.
You ready?
Sure.
Okay. Favorite book?
The Sum of Us.
Ooh, I love that book.
Yes, I love that book so much. I really should read it right now.
Wow. What's your favorite city, state, or country that you've ever visited, or maybe you want to visit?
Oh my God. My favorite country, what's coming to me right now, is Rome. So I fell in love with Rome a couple years ago. I'm really like trying to figure out how to get back there sometime this year. So yeah, that's like heavy on my heart right now. There's something about that city.
Oh, I love it. Isn't it so cool how it's like you've got this ancient stuff and then you got this modern stuff, and everything's walkable.
Everything.
It's so
and the
fabulous.
Food,
big foodie, all the things. All the things. Nike or Adidas?
Nike, Huaraches specifically.
Okay. Someone you'd like to meet or be mentored by, living or not?
Oh my God. Jeez. I would love to be mentored by Obama.
Which one though?
I know by Barack Obama.
Okay.
I mean, I love Michelle, and I know like there's a lot of, especially women right now who are all about Michelle. But I would love to even just have a conversation with Barack.
He seems like it would be a great conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. One word that sums up who you are right now.
Oh. That sums up who I am right now? Introspective is the word that's coming to me.
I love that. Well, tell people, what is your favorite way to connect with other humans? We're obviously going to have that all underneath this video, how to reach Trudi, how to work with her company. Yeah. And what's your favorite way to do that and let the people know?
Yeah. Well, second to in person, and I know that's something we share. We love seeing people in person. Instagram is where I hang out most.
Good.
So come and hang out with me on Instagram. I'm the one in my DMs. Like, I love hearing from folks and having little conversations, getting to know people there. So That's where you can find me.
Thank you, Trudi.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.